Humanity once lived in dreamlike communion with cosmic intelligences, beings who taught the mysteries of existence, the structure of the cosmos, the nature of consciousness itself. But these teachers, vast and ancient as they were, could not teach one thing: what it means to die. They had never experienced it. Birth and death were not part of their reality. Early humans, though spiritually awake, lived in strange innocence, connected to higher realms, yes, but disconnected from the full weight of embodied existence. Then consciousness shifted. Humanity descended deeper into matter. The body grew dense. The spiritual became distant. And with this descent came terror. Birth as wound, death as abyss, and no map for either. The crisis Rudolf Steiner identified is this: without the mystery of Golgotha, without Christ's deliberate passage through birth, suffering, and death, humanity would have remained spiritually orphaned, unable to integrate mortality with knowledge of the eternal soul. The cosmic teachers could not help. They had never crossed that threshold. But Christ did not as rescue as instruction. He entered the full catastrophe of incarnation so that both humanity and the divine realm itself could finally understand what it means to be born, to suffer, to dissolve, and to persist through it. This video maps why the incarnation was a necessity and what it reveals about the soul's continuity beyond the body's collapse. Rudolf Steiner's spiritual science presents the mystery of Golgotha not as salvation mythology, but as a cosmic turning point. A turning point in human evolution. Early humanity possessed a different mode of consciousness, dreamlike, imaginal, directly connected to spiritual hierarchies. These beings, the ancient teachers Steiner called cosmic intelligences, imparted profound knowledge about reality structure, the soul's nature, humanity's place in the cosmos. But they had one blind spot: mortality. Birth and death were not within their experience. They existed in realms where form did not dissolve, where consciousness did not pass through bodily extinction. Thus, they could not teach humanity how to navigate the most fundamental transitions of earthly existence. As human consciousness evolved, it descended further into matter. The physical body became denser, more opaque. The once transparent connection to spiritual realms dimmed. Steiner described this as necessary. Humanity needed to individuate, to develop ego consciousness and self-awareness, which required separation from the cosmic collective. But this descent brought crisis. Humans began to fear death because they could no longer perceive the soul's continuity. The spiritual realm receded from waking awareness, and all that remained visible was the body, and the body's inevitable decay. Into this crisis came the Christ event. The Christ, a cosmic being of the highest order, previously existing only in spiritual dimensions, made a conscious choice to incarnate fully into human form. This is not metaphor, but an objective event in spiritual history, a literal descent. A being who had never experienced limitation, pain, or dissolution, choosing to pass through the entire arc of birth, embodied life, suffering, and death. By doing so, the Christ bridged the gap between the cosmic teacher's wisdom and humanity's mortal experience. For the first time, the divine understood death from within, and humanity gained access to teachings about mortality from a source that had crossed the threshold and returned. Steiner emphasized that the resurrection was not the erasure of death, but its transfiguration. Christ did not eliminate mortality. He demonstrated that consciousness persists through it, that the soul does not dissolve when the body does, that the threshold of death is passageway, not ending. The teachings of the risen Christ transmitted to his disciples were instructions for navigating this threshold consciously. But much of this knowledge was lost as Christianity became institutionalized, as oral transmission gave way to dogma, as the living experience calcified into belief systems that no longer conveyed the operational mechanism. As humanity evolved, the physical body became increasingly dense. This densification was not pathology. It was necessary for developing individual consciousness, for developing free will. But it came with cost. The spiritual became harder to perceive during waking life. Death forces, processes of decay, aging, dissolution, grew stronger within the body, and the immortal soul, once vividly present to early humans, receded from conscious awareness. By the time of Christ's incarnation, most of humanity experienced themselves primarily as physical beings, with only dim intimations of anything beyond. The fear of death was a natural consequence of this forgetting. The Christ's incarnation addressed this crisis by introducing something unprecedented, a cosmic being voluntarily experiencing the full trajectory of human embodiment, including its most feared terminus, death. Steiner was explicit that this was not symbolic. The Christ entered matter completely, subjecting himself to the same forces of decay and dissolution that govern all incarnate life. Through this passage, the Christ gained experiential knowledge of mortality, and by doing so, transformed the meaning of death itself. What had been opaque abyss became known threshold. The divine now understood death from within, and this understanding could be transmitted to humanity. After the resurrection, the Christ's teachings focused on the nature of birth and death, from a perspective that transcended earthly limitation. These were not moral instructions. They were operational guidance for how the soul navigates the dissolution of the body and continues beyond it. Early Christians understood this through direct experience, cultivated through practices like the Eucharist, which was designed not as ritual repetition, but as technology. Technology for reawakening the soul's awareness of its own immortality. However, as the Church institutionalized, much of this living knowledge was lost. The teachings became doctrine. The experience became belief. Christ did not come to eliminate death. He came to make it conscious. The fear of death is not fear of cessation. It is fear of the unknown. Humanity had lost the capacity to perceive the soul's continuity, and so death appeared as annihilation. The Christ's passage through death and return demonstrated that consciousness persists, that the threshold can be crossed with awareness intact, that the soul is not bound by the body's fate. This was not a promise requiring belief. It was operational demonstration, the mechanism of death revealed by someone who had crossed it consciously. Steiner's insight here is that the resurrection was pedagogical, not magical. It showed what was always true, that the soul does not dissolve, but it showed it in a way that incarnate humanity could finally comprehend. The teachings that followed were instructions for how to prepare for this threshold, how to maintain consciousness through it, and how to recognize that birth and death are not opposites but phases in the soul's continuous existence. Steiner's teaching offers an immediate reframe. You are not preparing for life after death. You are preparing through life for conscious passage at death. Every moment you spend strengthening your awareness is threshold training. Your capacity to observe thought, emotion, and sensation without collapsing into them. The practice is direct, daily cultivation of witness consciousness. This is not dissociation. It is recognizing the permanent observer that persists beneath all transient experience. This observer is what continues beyond bodily dissolution. The mystery of Golgotha was not only for individuals, it was a cosmic event that recalibrated humanity's relationship to birth, death, and spiritual evolution. Before Christ's incarnation, humanity was descending into matter without a map for return. After the threshold became navigable, every soul that crosses death consciously, maintaining awareness through dissolution, contributes to the collective capacity for this passage. Steiner taught that the soul's continuity across lifetimes depends on what you have built in consciousness. If you live identified solely with the body, death is experienced as catastrophic fragmentation. If you have cultivated the witness, the observer that exists prior to thought, emotion, and sensation, that continuity persists. The preparation is not future. It is now. Stop treating death as the enemy. Start recognizing it as the threshold you will cross, consciously or unconsciously, depending on the work you do now. Christ did not die to save you from death. He died to show you how to pass through it awake. The teaching is simple. You are not your body, not your thoughts, not your emotions. You are the awareness observing all of it. Cultivate that awareness daily. Sit in witness. Watch the contents of consciousness arise and dissolve without clinging. When the body finally collapses, this observer will not. That is not faith. That is the mechanism Christ revealed by crossing first.